Hi, everyone. So I am a recovering Pakistani perfect woman, and I'm going to tell you in this talk why that is the case. But before we begin, it's very important for you to know that I'm also something else, which is, do you remember that really annoying kid in class who sat in the front, raised their hand up, was always giving all the right answers, perfect polished shoes, right socks, never got into trouble? Well, that was me, okay? So ever since I was a kid, actually, look, here, I was thinking of this. This is an example of how annoying I can be. So I tore out these papers from my notebook, and then I turned around the edges that were not even, so I'd get pages that looked nice and clean from the front. So I was that annoying kid, and I really liked being first at everything. And I was first in class in everything. I was actually so fond of being first that I was first even in birth. This is a true story. I am a firstborn. I am actually an only born. And as some of you might know, being an only child is actually a very rare condition in Pakistan. And it's not a good rare, okay? Like rainbows and butterflies and an intelligent yet handsome Pakistani man. It's a very bad rare, like the precipitous drop of the dollar recently, or the rupee recently against the dollar. It's like a zalzala. It's like a muzi marz. It's like that kind of bad, okay? So when you grow up with this condition, you develop this desire to be good at everything so that you don't disappoint any further, right? So that was me, trying not to disappoint any further. And by the way, I have to say, this is not at all because of my parents. They never put any of these expectations on me. This is despite my parents. My parents are actually a very odd and remarkable specimen of Pakistani parenthood. And just to give you some context, when I was 17, my father insisted that I apply to college abroad and see if I could get in. And I did. And I said, well, I did what you asked me to do. Now I've gotten in, and okay, good. And he was like, yes, but now you're going. And I said, what do you mean? I don't want to go. And while all other Pakistani fathers were telling their daughters, कि तुम कहीं नहीं जा रही, टांगे तोड़ दूंगा, घर में अंदर, my father was saying, जा सिमरन, जी ले अपनी जिंदगी. But here's the kicker, right? Simran was saying, मुझे कहीं नहीं जाना, मुझे नहीं जीनी ऐसी जिंदगी. And 4 years later, when I actually completed college in the US, all my other Pakistani friends, their parents were saying, emotionally blackmailing them, in fact, into coming back to Pakistan, except for my parents, who were saying, please don't come back, stay there, have fun, enjoy your life. And I was saying, nahi, mujhe nahi chahiye aisi azadi, I just want to come back to Pakistan. And so I came back to Pakistan. So, a lot of my friends actually say that I'm a real waste of really good parents. But despite that, and that is because social conditioning is so strong in Pakistan, there's so many signals that we're getting from all over the country constantly about what we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to be like, that it's really difficult to evade them. And so I was absorbing all of these social signals, and well, also partly credit must go to my mother, who is slightly more concerned about things like tameez and propriety than my father is. And so thanks to my amma, to Hum TV, and to countless Pakistanis who take it as their sworn solemn civic duty to create a generation of perfect Pakistani women, that I was not able to escape the clutches of society. So, you would think that if you have so many people offering you so much advice on how to be the perfect Pakistani woman, it should be fairly easy. But it's not, right? And you know why it's not easy? Because there's so many confusing symbols, signals, and sometimes some of them even try to defy biology. So for instance, if you were to take the perfect Pakistani woman manual and divide it into two parts, those two parts would be what you should look like and what you should behave like, okay? So what you should look like is tall, fair, thin, blonde, silky hair. So basically you should look Caucasian. Okay? Now, it surprises me because, I mean, like look around, we don't generally look like that, right? So to have this expectation that women can somehow defy biology and genetics and turn out different is a little bit absurd. But anyway, that's the expectation. So not are you supposed, so you're supposed to really try to look like you're Caucasian, and since we're not, or most of us aren't, blessed like that, there's a number of other things that we need to do. Like, don't go out into the sun, kali ho jaogi, right? How many times have we all heard that? It's like, if you have dark hair on your face, rip it out. Anywhere else on your body, rip it out. We don't want any of that hair on your bodies. If you have any kind of dark spots, blemishes, or even if you have a perfectly fine, brown, even complexion, bleach that stuff, because we don't like brown skin, right? So bleach your face. Also, always try to wear pale pastels, pinks, क्योंकि dark colors सिर्फ fast girls लगाती हैं, right? Also, really, when it comes to what you're supposed to look like, the message is don't stand out too much. You have to stand out just enough so that the mothers of eligible young men can spot you in a crowd. But okay, so this is still somewhat easy, right? They tell you, here is the ideal you need to aspire to, these are the tools, bleach, wax, this, that you need to get there, etc. The second one is actually more difficult, which is what you should behave or act like all the time. You should walk slowly. But not too slowly, lest they think your limbs don't function properly. You should sit straight, but not too straight, because they might think you're proud. It's actually best to do this like demure head tilt. Also, don't ever look anyone in the eyes, okay? Never, because they might think you're staring back at them defiantly, and we don't like defiance. Talk very softly, preferably in a breathy, soft tone. But don't make it too breathy, because we don't want people getting the wrong ideas. Let others speak for you. No need to exercise those vocal cords. And if you ever do decide to exercise those vocal cords, always be agreeable, Always say yes, no matter how ridiculous the demand is coming from the other side. Except there is one important exception to this. The one important exception is if those demands are being made by a man who is not related to you, then say no. And like the more you sort of say it strongly, the better. And most importantly, don't laugh. And don't laugh too loudly, because we all know, hasi to phasi, right? So don't laugh. And really this made me think that the ideal Pakistani woman is more like a can of tinned pineapples. Golden, perfectly well-rounded, swimming in an unending supply of sweet syrup, yet hollow on the inside. Right? And that's not really a good way to be, but anyway, that's what we're trained to be. And that's what I was going to be if I didn't want to disappoint and succeed in the world. So I decided to put this to the test, right? Put all of these to the test and break out the perfect Pakistani woman starter pack at a very important occasion. This very important occasion was when one very nice-looking British politician who I'd always had a crush on was visiting Pakistan. His name is David Miliband. Some of you might have heard of him, and if you haven't, please Google his picture. He is rather nice-looking. So I was invited to a dinner where I would get to meet David. So I was like, yes, this is my one big chance to prove how great this system is. So I went, I got my face bleached, waxed, everything, my hair blow dried, I got my nails painted like a lovely pale insipid pink, I wore something floral and pretty, I wore heels, and I arrived here. And I also, by the way, trained myself on how to act, right? So I spoke to my best friend who is very knowledgeable about all kinds of, useless things in the world. And I said, I'm going to meet David Miliband. What should I say? So he said, David likes football. Talk about football. He's an Arsenal fan. So I prepared a perfect conversation, okay, to have with David, which was, talking softly, not too loudly, a little bit funny, but not too funny, a little bit intelligent, but not too intelligent, God forbid. And I was ready. I was prepared to ace this test. So I arrive at this dinner looking like the perfect Pakistani woman, and I, sort of mingle, mix, I say hello to everybody, how's everyone doing? I don't want to look too eager, that I'm too eager to meet David, because you're not supposed to do that as a perfect Pakistani woman. And after a little while, someone else suggested, why don't we go say hi? And I said, oh, yeah, sure, yeah, let's go say hi. And so we walk up, and I'm like, oh my God, yes, this is my moment. I'm practicing my speech. I have this perfectly crafted conversation. I'm looking good, feeling good. We get to David, he's standing in a line with some other people. The other two people, they sort of introduce themselves. And as all of this is happening, I'm repeating the perfect conversation in my head that I'm going to have with David, right? Not really paying attention to what's happening around me. Finally, it's my turn. I walk up. I look at David. David looks at me. I reach out and I say, hi, I'm David. This is also, unfortunately, a true story. David was rather shocked to meet another David in Pakistan. Yeah, and at this point, I was mortified because who says to David, I'm David? But I thought, you know what? At this point, I should have just been like, it's okay. There are many Davids in the world. I could just be another David. Please leave it at that. Except, I was trying to recover and salvage the conversation in my head. And so, in order to try and make things better, I said, oh, actually, I'm not David. You're David. As if he was unaware. And at this point, I was, basically thinking to myself, this doesn't work. This template of the perfect Pakistani woman really doesn't work in any situation. You end up becoming really, you become freezing up, you're not yourself. And so that's actually when I decided to join an all-women's stand-up comedy group called Auratnak. We do stand-up comedy across the country. We talk about things that make a lot of people very uncomfortable sometimes, but we also talk about really important things, like, how not to be the perfect Pakistani woman. And the most important thing that I learned from doing stand-up comedy that I'd like to share with you is that when we first started doing comedy, they made us do a bunch of exercises where you had to not think and just react, right? So they would give you a sentence and say, I can, and then you had 10 seconds to write 10 things in front of I can. Does that sound easy? It's really actually very difficult, right? Because you're like, I can, what can I do, what can I not do? Log kya kahenge, amma kya kahenge, abba to nahi dekh rahe, right? And so it's very, very hard to put down your barriers, to sort of dig within the depths of your soul and pull out who you really are, and then write down what you can and cannot do. And stand-up comedy for me has been the wonderful medium through which I discovered that there is actually no prototype for the perfect Pakistani woman. We all have wonderful, quirky things that we do. There is no need to always be so serious. I was always like such a serious person because, that's what you're taught to be, not to laugh, not to smile at strangers. Those are the things that we constantly teach ourselves, particularly our girls, right? And what that ends up doing is crippling a lot of us and making us misfits in a global world. And that's a narrative that we need to break. And so for me, Auratnak has been an incredibly helpful platform in discovering myself, in letting myself be funny in public. The number of times people told me not to join a stand-up comedy group because I worked for a think tank and I had a very serious job where I talked about serious issues only was amazing. But the act of getting up on stage, of laughing with other people, of having other people laugh with me has been amazing and powerful, and it was allowed to me because a bunch of other women actually stood up and started a platform that other women could use. And that's the end of my talk, but before I go, I do want to say that we talk about how there are no perfect Pakistani women, how there's patriarchy, how there's all of these things weighing down upon us. But as you've seen even today, there are so many women who are defying that, who are doing wonderful, remarkable things. And when I was coming here today, I wore the orange scarf because this is the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And this is to honor all the women who have been survivors of violence, who have fought against it, and who have helped other women fight against it. Because the only reason that I am up here standing and doing this today is because there was a tribe of women before me who did the hard work that allowed me to be here. So thank you to all those amazing Pakistani women. Thank you.